Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Rise of Shadows special. Pandemonia is here with me, and today we're going to be talking about Thief Rogue.
Yes. Hi, everybody. Thief Rogue, one of those archetypes that I think Blizzard have been pushing for a very, very long time. As long as I can remember, they've been trying to push it.
Yeah, pretty much since Burgle, I think that was the beginning of the Thief
Yeah.
Rogue theme and flavor for the Rogue class. But just for these videos, we're not going to be talking about all the cards in the expansion. We're definitely going to have all of that stuff coming up, and eventually when we do the full review videos. So for now, we just want to talk about a couple of the cards that have come out, how they work together, and how they actually form like a coherent strategy or the kind of direction that Blizzard are trying to take a class, in this case Rogue. So let's have a look at the first card here. We have Hengeclan Burglar up first. Hengeclan Burglar is a 4-mana 4/3 pirate with Battlecry, discover a spell from another class. It's also a common. So first off, the discover a spell from another class as opposed to your opponent's class, that's kind of a change as to how the thief mechanic or theme is working a bit in the future. Now Blizzard have said that they're gonna go with this another class thing rather than your opponent's class. This is partly because of how poorly it plays in the Rogue Mirror. Thief cards just suck in the Rogue Mirror because a lot of the cards that require payoff require you to play cards from another class, and that just doesn't work at all in the Rogue Mirror. So that's kind of a change that we're going to see in their design philosophy going forwards. So then let's look at Hengeclan Burglar specifically. So a 4-mana 4/3 that draws you a card. How does that make you feel, Pandemonia?
A 4-mana 4/3. I mean, if you look at Gnomish Inventor, I mean, if you go back to basics, that's a 4-mana 2/4 that draws a card from your deck. So I guess 4-mana 4/3 that you see that this is where you kind of have to weigh up of, is drawing a card from your deck better or worse than discovering a random card from another class now?
Yeah.
And
So I mean,
discover from another
it is
class,
specifically spells in this case. It's not as wide as like any other card. So I think
sure.
that makes a difference, partly because we have to consider that rogues also have preparation, and so that can make a big difference for Hengeclan Burglar. Like spells in rogue are better than spells in other classes in just because of preparation. I mean, that's why we
Sure.
don't see spells as fairly costed in rogue as in some other classes that have like similar effects, right?
Yeah, but so the problem is, if you play in a game, it becomes an incredibly difficult. I mean, and even now, Rogue as a whole, with the new, like you were mentioning, with the change in the thief mechanic, it becomes substantially harder to play around cards, because
Yeah.
even if you, I mean, I think it was last year, the year before, where even I remember there was a game where a guy played around his opponent's stealing his Leroy. You know, even though yes, it's a random effect, it's still, you could still realistically say, okay, I'm going to play around him having this card or stealing this card from our class. But
Yeah.
now, all of a sudden, it's impossible, I think.
Yeah, I mean, basically, when you have, if we compare this to cards like, Thoughtsteal, talking about that idea, Thoughtsteal is stealing from a deck, so the limited 30 cards or less are based on what you've drawn already that your opponent can steal from. Obviously, that's Priest card. And then we have cards like Hallucination that steal from your opponent's class, so then you can limit it to all the cards in your class that your opponent can get. And now we're getting basically all the cards that are not rogue cards.
Yeah, well, class card, yeah.
Well, yeah, okay. In this case for Hengeclan Burglar, it's all the spells that are not rogue spells, basically.
So the problem becomes now is, you could be playing against the mage, and you have to now consider everything from polymorph to pyroblast to mind control to like hellfire.
Yeah.
Like all of a sudden, I think if you kind of do the statistic on, it's almost, I don't think it would be ever correct to actually try and play around everything.
Yeah, not unless it's like ridiculously likely or like ridiculously good position. But I mean, the point really that we're trying to make here, I think, is that because like whilst this change to the another class things favors rogues or the thief rogues in like the rogue mirror, it does make it like a bit more random, right? Because the ways that your opponent plays around it is not so great. But
I think it adds, for me, my opinion is that it adds bad RNG. Like,
Yeah,
it adds
sure.
a bad kind of like RNG, because like some aspects they add, you could argue are good RNG because they like test skill and they test, like Discover is probably one of the best examples of, skill based skill based. I say
Well,
skill based
this
RNG,
does have
but
Discover, but that's not the part we're complaining about. Or
yeah, the
you're
part
complaining
we're
about.
saying is the pool that it can get from, and the options are like endless. You can discover nearly any answer essentially.
Sure. I would say that because of that, this does favor the rogue player a bit. Because you obviously know what you're getting. You do have some choice. It's not just a completely random card. And you know what you're getting, so you can set it up so that your opponent plays into it, whereas they're more likely to play into it because, as you said, statistically it's not really good to play around anything specific unless you can make the specific read. So this kind of RNG does favor the rogue player in this scenario a bit more. Or the person playing Hench Clan Thug, at least. Your opponent could also be a rogue. But
Hench Clan
Burglar, sorry.
That one. I was like, Hench Clan Thug is the other one.
Yeah. Okay, so getting back to Hench Clan Burglar. Discovering a spell is a pretty powerful effect. 4 mana, 4/3, not bad stats, as you were saying, better than Gnomish Inventor. And the other thing that is notable, I think, for Hench Clan Burglar is that it is a pirate. This means we can draw it with Raiding Party, which is still going to be in standard. It synergizes with Hook Tusk for any
kind
deck.
of.
Well, yes.
You don't get the battle cry, but you get a 4/3.
You don't get the battle cry, but it's better than not pulling something out of your deck, basically, with Hook Tusk. If you have to, it's better than running out of pirates, because right now the amount of good pirates is not that high, and it also
you got the random synergy with Salty Captain.
yeah, and Cannon Barrage, but that's probably not that likely. So I think that's overall, Hench Clan Burglar looks like a fairly solid package, right? You just kind of have to ask yourself, how often you really want spells from another class, and that's kind of what we're going to see coming up now. Why exactly do we want these other class spells? Another thing to bear in mind is losing Fel'Dorei Strider means that the 4-drop curve or spot for Rogue is also opened up a bit. So it might even see play outside of decks that specifically want to that are specifically thief themed, right?
Just as a value card, right? Yeah. I mean, I don't want to it's because it's obviously quite different, but I mean, you can almost see it doing what Piloted Shredder did and Tomb Pillager did from days gone by.
Yeah, I think Tomb Pillager is maybe the closer comparison, but Tomb Pillager's stats were a lot better. Anyway, we are digressing slightly. Moving back to the idea of these thief cards and why exactly you want to kind of disadvantage yourself stats-wise here to get one of these other class spells in your hand. The best payoff that we've seen so far is Vendetta, and Vendetta is a 4-mana rare rogue spell which reads deal 4 damage to a minion, costs 0 if you are holding a card from another class. So on turn 4, for instance, you could play the Hench Clan Burglar and Vendetta straight away because you're going to be guaranteed to have that card from another class in your hand. And I mean, Vendetta at 4 mana for 4 damage in Rogue, that's pretty weak, especially considering it's to a minion. I mean, we have Eviscerate and Backstab that make that look pretty bad. But then if you compare it at 0 mana, now 0 mana to deal 4 damage, and without any kind of condition on where the 4 damage can go, that seems pretty good.
I mean, that's basically because that's slightly worse than Shadow Strike, because Shadow Strike was 3 mana, deal 5 damage to undamaged character.
Yeah, I mean, it's
so
at 0 mana.
It's a little bit different, but this is at 0 mana. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's obviously much. It's like the tempo swing is potentially very strong, right? And that's what Rogues, I mean, I think has been part of its identity.
Yeah,
I mean,
definitely.
Backstab, SR7 agents, probably one of the better the simple examples. Now you've potentially got this into the Hench Clan.
Well, Henge Clan Burglar into this,
Then
right?
into Vendetta is
Into
pretty
Vendetta,
strong.
yeah. So I mean, Vendetta gives you really good payoff. On turn 4, if you're doing it with Henge Clan Burglar, that's a very reasonable turn to be dealing 4 damage. I mean, if we look at like Flanking Strike right now in the meta, the Hunter card that deals 3 damage, that often finds a way to be useful then. And with Rogue as well, sometimes you'll have a dagger up, so you can maybe even kill 5 health minions. So I think, Vendetta seems very, very powerful. The biggest question is just, can we build a deck with enough of these another class generating cards to actually make it worthwhile? And are we going to get any more payoffs than Vendetta? And I mean, to kind of look to that question, we see another payoff card for this Thief mechanic that was released today. Underbelly Fence. Underbelly Fence is a 2-mana 2/3 rare rogue minion that reads Battle Cry. If you're holding a card from another class, gain +1/+1 and rush. So a bit reminiscent of Alexstrasza's Champion. That's what I've seen a lot of people comparing it to.
Yeah.
I think the big difference is that with Alexstrasza's Champion, you just had to be holding a dragon. So I mean, you didn't have to do anything to generate a dragon. Like you just put them in your deck. You can't put these cards in your deck. So the chances of playing Underbelly Fence with its Battle Cry activated on turn 2 is pretty low. I mean, there's only one.
The only activate at the moment is Pilfer.
Yeah.
And there's been we've been quite a bit of debate as to Pilfer. Do you really want to be playing Pilfer? Is Pilfer a good enough card? And generally, the answer is going to be no. So even though it costs 2 mana, it probably will have some utility probably late in the game.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is something that is most often going to be played off of turn 2, especially considering rogues don't really need 2-drops so much. I mean, traditionally, the 2-drop that's seen the most play in rogue is Prince Keleseth, basically. And that's because you didn't have to play any other 2-drops, so you got to dagger on 2 most of the time. And then when you draw Prince Keleseth, it's insane on curve. So, I mean, just the fact that the Underbelly Fence kind of competes with the idea that Rogue wants to dagger on 2, hero power on 2, is a bit of a concern. But I think what's nice is it gives you the flexibility. So in certain matchups where you'd rather play the Underbelly Fence as just a 2-mana 2/3 on turn 2, you can. Like, let's say against maybe a token deck, or you could even coin it out on turn 1. There's, flexibility here. I'm not sure that I really want to play Pilfer in order to enable Underbelly Fence. I think as a 2-mana 3/4 rush later in the game, it's not so bad. But it does still kind of pale in comparison to a lot of the other tempo tools we're used to seeing in Rogue, right? I mean, SI7 agent, if you activate the combo, is almost comparable, right? 2 damage instead of 3, and you get a 3/3 guaranteed. I mean, this, at best, it kills a 1/3 and it turns into a 3/3. It's obviously a bit cheaper. I mean, the other big thing that is kind of, or card that makes Underbelly Fence look underwhelming is Vilespine. Obviously, that's rotating out. So rogues kind of need some new tempo tools. I mean, this is no Vilespine, but I mean, it's hard to say that this isn't at least a good card, right? As a 2-mana 3/4 rush, like.
It just all comes down to, will you be able to activate it at the times where you need it, right?
Yeah.
And so this is where, like, so if they still have a Swashbuckler or has hallucination type card to print, I mean, we might be in a position where we kind of have to run Pilfer just so we can guarantee this. I mean, because in certain more aggressive matchups, you almost want this to play. You want to play this on 2, right?
Yeah.
Much like if we look back at like Shaz's Champion, you wanted to be able to play it on 2 to contest the board. And sure, it's got utility later on, but in faster matchups, you want this as a 2-mana 3/4 on 2 because you wanted to kill something and then still challenge the board for whatever they play next.
Yeah, and I mean the big thing is that you actually need it to catch up if you're playing Pilfer on 1, because assuming the meta gets a bit faster, which I think it might, but that's like in let's say in any given faster meta, you kind of want to play a 1-drop as rogue and then hero power on 2, whereas this way around, you kind of playing Pilfer on 1, you need a bit more of maybe a catch-up mechanic on 2 if you don't have something like a backstab or something like that. You could also just go like Blink Fox on 3 into double Underbelly Fence on 4. That seems reasonable as well.
I mean, that's not too bad.
So I think Underbelly Fence seems like a pretty decent card, but I'm not going to be rushing to put it in my deck as much as like, Vendetta. As much as Vendetta or the Hench Clan Burglar even. Like, I think people might slightly be overrating Underbelly Fence, but I think I'm also a little bit biased in that I'm not in love with the Thief Rogue mechanic overall.
Sure.
But we've spoken about a couple of the support cards that are still going to be in standard. So I think let's have a look at those. Pilfer, the one we've got on screen here, is the classic card that was added, or the common spell that was added to the classic set to replace Conceal, basically.
Yeah.
So 1 mana common spell, add a random card from your hand to your hand from your opponent's class. So in a rogue mirror, this isn't actually going to activate Underbelly Fence. So that's a bit of stuff up.
Did they change it? I thought they...
I don't think so. I don't think they've changed Pilfer. I mean, that's what the version I have reads.
'Cause I literally thought they restarted from your opponent's class.
So it's only the new stuff that actually generates cards from another class rather than your opponent's class. So that is slightly a problem. All of these these Thief Rogue things are still going to be underwhelming in the Rogue mirror, right? It doesn't even have to be a Thief Rogue mirror. Like if your opponent's just playing normal Rogue and you're playing Thief Rogue, you're at a disadvantage because half your deck doesn't work properly. Anyway, the other one that generates random cards and probably the best one tempo-wise is Blink Fox, 3 mana 3/3 that adds a random card to your hand from your opponent's class once again. So yeah, obviously doesn't work in the Rogue thing. And then the one card that is actually kind of making Thief Rogue a thing a little bit, I'd say a very fringe Rogue deck towards the end of this Year of the Mammoth. That's what's ending, right?
Is it the Year of the Mammoth or the Year of the Raven?
Oh, Year of the Raven. Year of the Raven, sorry.
Is Year of the Raven in
Yeah, it is Year of the Raven. I was thinking Year of the Mammoth. Those are like the cards that were rotating out. Anyway, one card that is going to be staying in standard as well is Spectral Cutlass, which I'm going to read for those that don't remember what it does. Spectral Cutlass is a 4 mana 2/2 epic weapon with lifesteal, and whenever you play a card from another class, gain +1 durability. So stick a Deadly Poison on this and play a couple cards from another class, and you have yourself a very poor man's King's Bane. In a whole like King's Bane Rogue style kind of way. Obviously, you can't loop this infinitely. You can have 2 Spectral Cutlasses in your deck and play lots of cards from another class, but eventually the Cutlass is going to break, or you're going to have to not use it when you want to play one of your own class cards. So it's not ideal, but it is a decent payoff that kind of stacks up over time for playing these cards, these other class cards. And right now, outside of the Vendetta and Underbelly Fence, it's some of the better payoffs. And then the big flashy one that everyone thinks of is Tess, which basically replays every card you played from another class this game. Once again, another class. This overlap is going to be... well, actually, yeah. I mean, all of the condition stuff has always required another class, so that's fine. It's always the generation stuff that is a bit tricky. Always going to be a bit tricky.
The question now is going to be whether all this Thief Rogue stuff is going to be good enough and consistent enough to actually be more than just like a meme, right? Like, because it's constantly, I mean, so for example, previously, like in Odd Rogue and in Tempo, we included we played Blink Fox because it was a good card. It was a 3/3 that gave us a card. So now we've got to ask ourselves, do we want to kind of invest more in the Thief Rogue synergies for the payoff of we get a bunch of cards so we have some cool abilities, but then ultimately we're still going to have a bunch of cards not from our class. So
a bunch of cards that don't really synergize with each other, right? I mean,
exactly.
That's kind of the issue you have when you are playing these Thief archetypes. It's very difficult to build a reliable deck when kind of part of your deck is generating cards that are inherently unreliable. Like you just said Blink Fox is like a 3-mana 3/3 that gives you a card. I would argue Blink Fox is a 3-mana 3/3 that gives you a card 50% of the time. I don't know what the exact percentage is, but let's say it's a little bit less than 50% of chance that card's playable, right? Now, we can look at HenchClan Burglar is maybe a little bit higher because there's some Discover there. So you have a chance that card is playable a little bit more. Pilfer, it's a card that may not give you a card. I mean, that's the big problem I have with Pilfer, right? Like, you can take a card and then turn it into not a card. And there's no way that's a good, like, turn. So what I do like about the current design that they're going with for these new cards, Underbelly Fence and Vendetta, is that it rewards you for even the scenarios where that card that Blink Fox or Pilfer or HenchClan Burglar gives you is a bad card, right? That's the positive here in the design aspect of Underbelly Fence and Vendetta. Even if it's a terrible card, like a Twisting Nether that you never want to play as the aggro deck in the matchup, then it's fine. Like, you can just hold it and it activates your other cards. You don't have to actively play it like you did with the old mechanics. And whilst this is all that we have revealed right now, it's possible they might reveal other payoffs. I think for this deck to really become powerful, we're going to need maybe another payoff. I think it might be playable now, but I think it's still going to be a little bit on the fringe.
I think what would push this off, like, I would just say, is if they were to make something that resembles Swashbuckler. Right? Swashbuckler would, I think, essentially make, because it would give you that 1/1 you want on turn 1, and it would give you, all your activators. It would activate everything. I don't know if that would be too good, though.
I don't think it's actually the generator that we need more of now that I've been thinking about it. I think you need, like, another payoff, right? Like,
you think so?
I don't even want to put a Swashbuckler in my deck just for, like, Vendetta and Underbelly Fence, right? Like, I mean, those two cards are not enough payoff. Well,
you want an Obsidian Shard.
I don't know, because Obsidian Shard once again requires you to play the cards. That was the huge fault with the Obsidian Shard and why it was so terrible. It's because you had to play these cards that are sometimes just bad cards that you can't play. So, like, that just doesn't work. A giant thing is
cheaper for every card from another class in your hand. A rogue giant.
I don't know. I mean, I can't really specify what the payoff is. I mean, Vendetta is an insane payoff for tempo wise, but it's not really going to win you the game. I think it's more realistic now that we see a part of a Thief package in rogue decks that want to just do other things. Like, Blink Fox is fine. Underbelly Fence, Blink Fox and HenchClan Burglar are fine for ways to generate it. Pilfer is very iffy, and I don't really want to play it unless there's very good reasons otherwise to play it, like Gadgets and Auctioneer or something like that. And Underbelly Fence and Vendetta are both just pretty solid cards. I mean, we could see, like, Academic Espionage as another way to generate cards, but that's also extremely memey. So, yeah, I mean...
And, you have one game where things, like, work magically, and the next game where, like, it does nothing forever.
Yeah. I think the dedicated Thief Rogue deck might not have enough tools. I think there'll just be better Rogue decks, quite frankly, that don't have to build specifically into the Thief archetype. But we'll come back to this discussion once we know all the cards and we can see everything when we do our actual full Rogue preview. What I want to say about the Thief Rogue archetype is that, first of all, I don't like the archetype for Rogue. Secondly, I do think they're taking the archetype in a better direction with this another class thing in terms of that Rogue v Rogue matchup. And thirdly, and most importantly, I think that they're doing a better job with the cards like Underbelly Fence and Vendetta, where they're rewarding you even when you get bad cards from another class, not making you play the cards from another class like you have to with Tess or Spectral Cutlass or Obsidian Shard before that. Now you don't have to play those cards when sometimes your generators are going to generate you unplayable cards. You can actually just hold on to them and you still get rewarded for putting these slightly riskier generation cards in your deck.
But also just a sort of a sort of little extra to that is the other benefit of these always is by increased diversity, your opponent constantly has to ask themselves, okay, what is the rogue keeping in their hand from another class? And like even you have an unplayable card, but like if you're the other player, you have to go, okay, is it something dumb like a mind control? Is it something silly, is it conditional removal? Is it conditional this? Is it what is it? And like it's a dart, right?
When you play against the rogue, you're almost happy to see them play out the cards. And now they're even more likely to hold them so they get the synergy from Underbelly Fence and Vendetta, right? So yes, it's going to make life more painful playing against the rogues. And I suppose from my side, I'm thinking more of the rogue player's perspective. Whereas you're definitely on the other side of the fence.
I'm playing against a rogue now. I'm going to be sitting there going, okay, this guy's had a spell from another class from turn 4, and he hasn't played it. So it could be ancestral healing, or give all your totems +2 health. But it could also be polymorph. It could also be it can also be pyroblast. So and there's very little way of knowing, right?
Yeah, definitely. So I mean, I think that's kind of what we have to say really about the Thief Rogue archetype and what we're seeing so far. I must say that Vendetta is the big card that makes me want to play this archetype. And I think Hench Clan Burglar might be the card that has the most potential outside of the archetype, weirdly enough, because of that pirate tag and the fact that it's okay as a 4-mana 4/3 that has some possible future payoff with that discovering a spell from another class. So that's all we have for this video, unless you have anything else you want to add, Pandemonia?
I think, it might be a thing, right?
Yeah, maybe. I'm less interested in the archetype than the individual cards at this point, because I don't like the archetype as a deck, but I think some of the cards, the newly designed cards, are nice. But anyway, I digress again. We are going to be doing a bunch more videos like this, looking at some of the themes of groups of cards that are coming out of Rise of the Shadows as they're released. Just some first impression videos to give a bit of a different take on the expansion spoilers compared to everyone else that just goes over each card and gives impressions. If you have any specific themes you want us to look at, feel free to drop a comment below in the comments on YouTube, or you can find us on Twitter and let us know your thoughts. You can find Pandemonia at PandemoniaZA, and you can find me at dib_gaming on Twitter. So feel free to let us know. What we are planning on looking at next are some of the Disruptor cards that they're releasing in this set, which I think are pretty cool, as well as the combo enablers that are going to enable you to build the decks that you're going to want, or that are going to enable you to build the decks that you don't want your opponents to disrupt. So I think that's some interesting stuff. We're also going to be looking at lackeys, which are probably one of the mechanics and new themes from this set that I'm most excited about. So let us know which one of those videos you want to see first, and any other feedback you have on this video. Thanks a lot for tuning in, everyone. Cheers.